The cargo ship Starlight Wanderer moved slowly through the dark emptiness of space. It was an old ship, built 20 years ago for carrying goods between human colonies. The hull was covered with scratches and dents from years of travel through asteroid fields and space dust. But the ship still worked well, and its captain loved it like a family member. Captain Daniel Brooks stood near the front window of the bridge, watching the purple clouds of the Caloran Nebula pass by. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been a cargo captain for 15 years, and he had seen many beautiful things in space. But the nebula always made him stop and look. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations. There were 47 people on the Starlight Wanderer. Some were experienced space travelers, and others were young people on their first long journey. They carried medical supplies to a colony that needed them badly. It was simple work, but important work. Katie Morgan sat at the communication station. She was young, only 24 years old, with red hair that she kept tied back. She had joined the crew 6 months ago, and she was good at her job. Her fingers moved across her screens as she checked for any messages from nearby ships or stations. Then she saw something strange on her scanner. 3 small dots appeared where there had been nothing before. Then 5 dots. Then 12. "Captain," Katie said, her voice suddenly tense. "I'm picking up multiple ship signatures. They just appeared out of nowhere." Brooks turned away from the window. "What do you mean, appeared? Ships don't just appear. They were cloaked, sir. They're decloaking all around us." The bridge crew looked at their screens with growing fear. The ships that surrounded them were not human. They had sharp angles and dark metal hulls. Every spacer knew those designs. They belonged to the Vrix Dominion. The Vrix were an old species, much older than humanity. They had gray skin covered with hard plates like an insect shell. Their faces had 4 eyes that glowed yellow in the dark. For thousands of years, they had been conquerors. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who tried to stop them. Humanity had met the Vrix 50 years ago. There had been small fights, arguments over territory, and raids on distant outposts. But the Vrix had never attacked a registered cargo ship in neutral space. This was something new. This was something dangerous. "Raise shields," Brooks ordered. "Get the engines ready for emergency jump." But he was too late. The first plasma bolt hit the Starlight Wanderer before anyone could move. The ship shook violently, and sparks flew from broken equipment. Crew members fell to the floor. Alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Lucas Perry's voice came through the intercom. He was the chief engineer, a big man with strong hands who had kept the old ship running for years. Now his voice was filled with pain and fear. "Captain, they hit our main engines. We're not going anywhere. And life support is failing on decks 3 through 7. We have people trapped down there." Another blast rocked the ship. Then another. The Vrix were not trying to disable them. They were playing with them, hitting non-vital areas to cause fear and suffering. Brooks realized with horror that the aliens were enjoying this. The main view screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was a Vrix commander, his gray skin pulled tight over his skull, his 4 yellow eyes gleaming with cruel pleasure. His mandibles clicked together as he spoke, and a translation device turned his words into human language. "Human vessel," the Vrix commander said. "I am War Leader Draxus. You will surrender your cargo and your crew to me. Do not resist. It will only make your deaths more painful." Brooks looked around his bridge. His people were scared, but they were also angry. He saw Katie's hand shaking as she worked a console. He saw his first officer, a man named Gary Webb, gripping his chair with white knuckles. "We are a civilian ship," Brooks said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We carry medical supplies for a colony. We are not your enemies. Let us go, and there will be no trouble." Draxus made a sound that might have been laughter. Trouble? You think humans can cause trouble for the Vrix? Your species is weak. You are traders and farmers. You are not warriors. We will take what we want, and no one will stop us. The Vrix ships moved closer. Brooks could see their boarding tubes extending toward his ship like the legs of giant insects. He knew what was coming. He had heard stories about Vrix boarding parties. They did not take prisoners gently. All hands, Brooks said into the intercom, his voice heavy with sorrow. Prepare to repel boarders. Fight if you can. God help us all. Katie turned to look at him. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her voice was firm. Captain, I'm sending a distress signal. Someone needs to know what happened here. Brooks nodded. Do it. Make sure they hear us. The sound of cutting metal filled the ship as the Vrix began burning through the hull. Katie worked quickly, her fingers flying across her console. She opened every channel she could find and began broadcasting. This is cargo vessel Starlight Wanderer to any human ship. We are under attack by Vrix forces in Sector 79 Gamma. They're killing everyone. Please, someone remember us. Please, someone make them pay for this. The bridge door exploded inward. Vrix soldiers poured through, their weapons firing beams of hot plasma. Gary Webb was the first to fall. His chest burned open before he could even stand. 3 more crew members died in the first seconds. Brooks grabbed a fire extinguisher and swung it at the nearest alien. It connected with the creature's head, cracking one of its eyes. But another Vrix knocked him down and placed a foot on his chest. Katie kept broadcasting even as the aliens approached her station. She kept talking even as they raised their weapons. Her last words went out into the void, carried by radio waves across the endless darkness of space. Someone remember us. Then the plasma bolt silenced her forever. The massacre took less than an hour. The Vrix moved through the ship with terrible efficiency. They killed anyone who fought back and beat those who surrendered. They laughed as they worked, making jokes in their clicking language about the weakness of humans. When it was over, 38 humans were dead. Their bodies were left where they fell, floating in the broken corridors of their ship. 9 survivors were dragged to the Vrix vessels in chains. Among them was Captain Daniel Brooks, kept alive because Draxus wanted a trophy dot as the Vrix ships flew away, leaving the burning wreck of the Starlight Wanderer behind. Draxus looked at his human prisoners with satisfaction. This had been a good day. Easy prey, valuable cargo, and slaves to sell. The humans were as weak as he had always believed. He did not know that Katie's signal had been received. He did not know that her final words were already being played in offices and war rooms across human space. He did not understand what he had started. The Vrix had won a small battle, but they had just begun a war that would cost them everything. The message from the Starlight Wanderer reached Earth 6 hours after the attack. It passed through relay stations and communication satellites until it arrived at the headquarters of Earth Defense Command. There, a young officer listened to it and felt his blood turn cold dot within 1 hour. The recording was playing in the most powerful room on Earth. The War Council chamber was deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. Around a long table sat the most important military leaders of humanity. Admirals and generals from every branch of service sat in uncomfortable silence as they watched the footage. Admiral Patricia Cole stood at the head of the table. She was 60 years old, with short white hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had commanded human forces for 20 years, and she had never lost a war. Now she watched the recording with a face that showed no emotion. The footage showed everything. It showed the Vrix ships appearing from nothing. It showed the first plasma bolts hitting the cargo ship. It showed Draxus mocking Captain Brooks and calling humans weak. And it showed Katie Morgan, young and brave, sending her final message as the aliens closed in around her. "Someone remember us?" The recording ended. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy and thick, filled with anger that had no words. Secretary of Defense Raymond Blake was the first to speak. He was a politician, a man who thought in terms of budgets and public opinion. "We need to be careful here. The Vrix Dominion controls over 60 star systems. They have one of the largest fleets in this part of the galaxy. If we respond too strongly, we could start a war that costs millions of lives." Admiral Cole turned to look at him. Her eyes were cold. "Secretary Blake, do you know why human ships can travel safely through most of this galaxy? Do you know why pirates avoid our trade routes? Why slavers stay away from our colonies?" Blake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Our diplomatic relationships? No," Cole interrupted. "It is because every species in this galaxy knows what happens when you kill human beings. They know about the Kreth Syndicate. 15 years ago, the Kreth raided our colony on New Haven. They killed 200 civilians. Do you know what happened to the Kreth Syndicate, Secretary?" Blake said nothing. "They do not exist anymore," Cole continued. "We destroyed every ship they had. We burned every base they built. We hunted them until there was nothing left. And we made sure that everyone in this galaxy saw what we did." She walked to the holographic display and activated it. A map of human territory appeared, showing 12 colony worlds and thousands of ships. Behind the military vessels were factories, shipyards, and training facilities that could produce weapons faster than any other species. "The Vrix have made a terrible mistake," Cole said. "They believed the stories about humans being peaceful traders. They forgot that traders need to protect their goods. They forgot what happens when you take from us." General Henry Adams, commander of the Marine Corps, leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "I am suggesting that we remind the galaxy why they fear us. Not a limited strike. Not a diplomatic protest. We will declare total war on the Vrix Dominion. We will destroy their military capability. We will break their government. And we will make sure that no species ever thinks about attacking our people again." The room erupted in discussion. Some supported Cole's plan. Others worried about the cost in lives and resources. But as the debate continued, something became clear. The footage from the Starlight Wanderer had changed things. The sight of Katie Morgan dying while calling for help had touched something deep in every human who saw it. The vote was unanimous. The United Human Coalition authorized full military action against the Vrix Dominion. 6 hours later, Fleet Commander Nathan Price received his orders aboard the carrier Relentless. He was a younger officer, only 45, but he had proven himself in a dozen smaller conflicts. His crew trusted him completely. Commander Michelle Davis, his executive officer, stood beside him as he read the orders. She was a small woman with dark skin and sharp eyes. Nothing escaped her notice. "What do they want us to do?" she asked. Price handed her the tablet. The orders were written in simple, direct language. There was no room for confusion or interpretation. "They want us to make an example," he said quietly. "The kind that will be remembered for 1,000 years." Davis read the orders twice. Her face showed no fear, only determination. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning. 300 ships. Every carrier, every dreadnought, every destroyer we can spare. We're going to hit them before they know what's happening." In the massive hangars of the Relentless, pilots and crew members prepared their ships for battle. Word of the attack on the Starlight Wanderer had spread quickly. Everyone had seen the footage. Everyone had heard Katie Morgan's final words. A young pilot named Jack Torres was checking his fighter when his squadron leader approached. "You ready for this?" the older man asked. Torres nodded. His hands were steady on his equipment. "My sister worked on a cargo ship like the Wanderer. Could have been her. Could have been any of us. All around him, other pilots nodded in agreement. This was not just a military operation. This was personal. The Vrix had killed their people, and now they would answer for it. Back on Earth, Admiral Cole stood in her office, looking out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, 9 humans were being held as slaves by creatures who thought humanity was weak. Somewhere out there, the Vrix were celebrating their victory, not knowing that death was coming for them. Her communication device buzzed. It was a message from the family of Katie Morgan. Her parents wanted to thank the military for taking action. They wanted Cole to know that their daughter would have been proud. Cole read the message 3 times. Then she sent her reply. Your daughter's bravery saved lives. Her signal gave us the evidence we needed. Because of her, we know exactly who did this, and we know where to find them. I promise you, on my honor as an officer and a human being, that the Vrix will pay for what they did. Katie will be remembered, and she will be avenged. She put down the device and looked back at the stars. Tomorrow, the fleet would launch. In a few weeks, they would reach Vrix space. And then the galaxy would remember why humans were feared. The traders and farmers were going to war, and they would show no mercy. The Vrix homeworld of Kesara Prime was a beautiful planet. Its oceans were deep green, and its continents were covered with cities that had stood for thousands of years. From space, it looked peaceful, almost welcoming. But the Vrix who lived there were not peaceful people. They had built their empire on conquest and blood. For 3,000 years, no enemy had ever reached Kesara Prime. The planet was protected by massive orbital defense platforms, each one armed with enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. 100 warships patrolled the surrounding space. The Vrix believed their homeworld was untouchable. They were wrong. The human fleet arrived without any warning. One moment, the space around Kesara Prime was empty. The next moment, 300 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They appeared like ghosts, silent and deadly. Their weapons already charging. Commander Nathan Price stood on the bridge of the Relentless, watching the Vrix homeworld grow larger on his screen. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. All ships, report status, Price ordered. One by one, the captains of the human fleet confirmed they were ready. The carriers relentless and unyielding. The dreadnought's hammer of justice and righteous fury. Destroyers, cruisers, and support ships spread out in a formation designed for maximum destruction. The Vrix responded quickly, but not quickly enough. Their defense platforms began firing, sending streams of plasma toward the human ships. Vrix warships moved to intercept the invaders. But human technology was better than they expected. Shields holding, reported Lieutenant Amy Green from her station. Their weapons are doing minimal damage. Price nodded. Target their command ships first. I want their leaders watching when their fleet burns. The first volleys of human railguns tore through space at incredible speed. These weapons fired metal projectiles so fast that they hit with the force of nuclear explosions. When they struck Vrix ships, those ships simply ceased to exist. The battle was brutal and one-sided. Vrix cruisers tried to close the distance with human ships, hoping to use their numbers to overwhelm the enemy. But human targeting systems tracked multiple enemies at once, and human pilots flew with skill that the Vrix had never seen. Captain Sandra Wells commanded the destroyers with vengeance. Her ship moved through the chaos like a dancer, dodging enemy fire while delivering devastating attacks. She had lost friends on a Vrix raid 10 years ago. Today, she was collecting a debt. 2 cruisers on our left, her tactical officer reported. I see them. Wells pushed her ship into a sharp turn, bringing her main guns to bear. 2 quick shots, 2 explosions, and 2 more Vrix ships became floating debris. The Vrix Supreme Commander, A decorated warrior named Torax watched the battle from his command center on the planet's surface. He had fought many wars in his long life. He had conquered species and crushed rebellions. But he had never seen anything like this. How is this possible? He demanded. Humans are weak. They are traders and explorers. They do not fight like this. His advisors had no answers. The human fleet was tearing through their defenses like a hot knife through butter. Ships that had taken years to build were dying in seconds. Defense platforms that were supposed to be invincible were exploding one after another. After 4 hours, it was over. The Vrix fleet was destroyed. 230 of their ships had been reduced to wreckage. The orbital defense platforms were silent, their weapons melted, and their crews dead. The space around Kisara Prime belonged to humanity. The human fleet had lost 11 ships. 11 out of 300. Price opened a communication channel to the planet below. His message was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every Vrix language. Every screen on the planet showed his face. "People of Kisara Prime," he said, his voice calm and cold. "Your government attacked and murdered human civilians. They took our people as slaves. They laughed while our citizens died. Now you will see what happens when you harm humanity." He paused, letting his words sink in. On the planet's surface, billions of Vrix watched with growing terror. You have 12 hours to evacuate your military bases, government buildings, and weapons factories. Anyone who remains in those areas after 12 hours will be considered a combatant and will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Supreme Commander Torax appeared on the communication channel. His 4 eyes blazed with anger and wounded pride. He refused to show fear in front of these mammals. "You are fools," Torax snarled. "You cannot frighten the Vrix. We have ruled this region of space for 3,000 years. You are nothing but jumped-up apes playing with technology you do not understand. We will never surrender to you. Never." Price looked at the image of the Vrix commander. He felt no anger, no hatred. Only a cold certainty about what needed to be done. "Lieutenant Green," he said, not taking his eyes off Torax. "Do we have targeting coordinates for the Supreme Commander's location?" "Yes, sir. His war council chamber is in the government district of the capital city. Fire 1 kinetic round. Maximum velocity." The Vrix commander had just enough time to realize what was happening. His defiance turned to horror in the final instant before a metal projectile traveling at a fraction of light speed struck his building. The explosion was visible from space. A mushroom cloud rose over the capital city, marking the spot where the Supreme Commander and his entire general staff had stood. In a single heartbeat, the leadership of the Vrix military had been erased. Price watched the cloud rise on his screen. Then he spoke again to the planet below. "The evacuation begins now. 12 hours. I suggest you do not waste them." On Kisara Prime, panic spread through the population. Vehicles filled the roads leading away from military and government areas. Families grabbed what they could carry and fled into the countryside. The Vrix had never known fear like this. They had always been the hunters, never the prey. But now the humans had come. And the humans were not playing games. In the wreckage of the orbital battle, human rescue ships searched for survivors from the 11 lost vessels. They found some floating in emergency pods or clinging to pieces of debris. Every human life was precious, worth any effort to save. Commander Michelle Davis supervised the rescue operations. As she watched the pods being brought aboard, she thought about the 47 crew members of the Starlight Wanderer. Most of them were dead now, but 9 might still be alive, held somewhere in Vrix space. "Commander Price," she said into her communicator, "what about our prisoners? The survivors from the cargo ship?" Price's voice came back immediately. "A special team is already being assembled. We're going to get our people back. Every single one of them. Davis nodded, though he could not see her. Humanity had won the battle for Kizara Prime, but the war was not over yet. Not until every captured human was free. Not until the Vrix understood exactly what they had done wrong. And not until the galaxy learned, once again, why you should never attack a human ship. While the main human fleet held position over Kizara Prime, a smaller group of ships slipped away into the darkness of space. Their mission was different from the others. They were not going to destroy enemy ships or bomb enemy cities. They were going to bring their people home. Captain Sandra Wells commanded the rescue force from her destroyer, the Swift Vengeance. She had 5 other ships with her, all fast and heavily armed. But the real strength of her force was the 200 Marines packed into her cargo holds, led by Major Ben Taylor. Taylor was a big man with a shaved head and arms covered in scars from past battles. He had been a Marine for 20 years, and he had been on dozens of rescue missions. But this one felt different. This one was personal. "We've located the prisoners," Wells announced over the ship's intercom. "They're being held in a facility on Kizara 7, a moon orbiting the 4th planet in this system. The prison is built underground, protected by rock and energy shields." Taylor studied the images on his screen. The prison was a fortress. Multiple levels of tunnels and chambers carved into the moon's surface. Guard posts at every entrance. Energy shields that could stop most weapons. The Vrix had built it to hold their most valuable prisoners. "How do we get in?" asked Sergeant Lisa Park, one of Taylor's most trusted soldiers. "That's the hard part," Taylor admitted. "If we attack slowly, they'll have time to kill the prisoners before we reach them. We need to hit fast and hard, faster than they can react." Captain Wells had been thinking about the same problem. She looked at the moon on her screen, calculating distances and angles. Then she smiled, a cold and dangerous smile. "I have an idea," she said. "It's risky. It might get us all killed, but it should work." Her plan was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. The Swift Vengeance would fly directly at the prison's main shield generator, firing every weapon on board. The shields would have to drop to avoid overload. In that moment, Taylor's Marines would drop from assault pods onto the prison roof and fight their way inside. "You're going to use your ship as bait," Taylor said. "Not bait. A battering ram." Wells turned to face him through the video screen. "Those are our people down there. I'll fly my ship into the sun if that's what it takes to get them out." The Marines prepared for battle in silence. They checked their weapons, their armor, and their equipment. Each soldier carried enough firepower to level a building. Their powered armor could stop most enemy weapons and let them move faster than any Vrix could follow. Taylor walked among his troops, saying a word here and there. He stopped next to a young private named Danny Cole, barely 20 years old and on his first real mission. "Scared?" Taylor asked. Cole nodded honestly. "Yes, sir. A little. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just remember why we're here. There are 9 humans in that prison who are counting on us. 9 people who have been through hell, waiting for someone to come. We don't leave our people behind. Ever." Cole straightened up, his fear transforming into determination. "Yes, sir. I understand." The assault began at exactly midnight, ship time. Human electronic warfare ships jammed all Vrix communications across the moon. Strike fighters screamed through the thin atmosphere, hitting secondary targets and creating chaos. And the Swift Vengeance dove toward the prison like a falcon attacking its prey. Vrix anti-aircraft weapons opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the sky, turning the darkness into a storm of deadly light. The Swift Vengeance shook as hits landed on her hull. But Wells kept her course steady. "Shields at 60%, her officer reported. "Keep going. Shields at 40%. Keep going. Shields at 20%. Captain, we have to pull up. Wells shook her head. She could see the shield generator now, a dome of metal and glass on the prison roof. All weapons. Fire at that generator. Everything we have. Now. The swift vengeance unleashed its full arsenal. Missiles, railguns, and energy weapons pounded the generator with overwhelming force. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the generator exploded in a ball of white fire, and the prison's shields flickered and died. Now. Wells shouted into her communicator. Go, go, go! Assault pods launched from the other ships, falling toward the prison like metal rain. Each pod carried 10 Marines in full combat gear. They hit the roof hard, breaking through weak points in the structure and dropping into the corridors below. Taylor was in the first pod. He hit the ground running, his rifle already firing at the Rick's guards who rushed to meet him. The aliens were fast and strong, but the Marines were faster and stronger. Powered armor turned their punches into hammer blows and their bodies into unstoppable forces. Move, 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 Taylor shouted. The prisoners are on the lowest level. We go down and we go fast. The Vricks fought hard. They knew what would happen if the humans reached the prisoners. Officers screamed orders, trying to organize a defense. But the Marines moved like water, flowing around obstacles and overwhelming resistance. Sergeant Park led a squad down a side corridor, clearing rooms and securing escape routes. Private Cole stayed close to Taylor, watching the Major's back and learning from every move he made. The fear was still there, but it was under control now. He had a job to do. They reached the prisoner level after 15 minutes of brutal fighting. The door to the cell block was made of thick metal, designed to keep people in. Taylor placed explosive charges at the corners and stepped back. Fire in the hole. The explosion blew the door off its hinges. Inside, Taylor found 9 humans huddled in cells designed for suffering. They were thin and wounded, covered in the marks of Rick's torture. But they were alive. Captain Daniel Brooks was in the first cell. His eyes were sunken, his face covered with bruises. But when he saw the Marine uniforms, something in him came back to life. You came, he whispered. I didn't think anyone would come. Taylor cut through the cell door and helped Brooks to his feet. We always come. That's who we are. One by one, the Marines freed the prisoners. Some could walk on their own. Others had to be carried. A woman named Jennifer Ross had both legs broken and could barely stay conscious. But she was alive, and she was going home. The evacuation was fast and efficient. Marines formed a protective ring around the survivors, fighting off any Vricks who tried to stop them. The assault pods were waiting on the surface, ready to carry everyone to safety. As Taylor helped Brooks into a pod, the captain grabbed his arm. Katie Morgan, the communications officer. Did she survive? Taylor shook his head slowly. I'm sorry. She died sending the distress signal. But because of her, we knew where to find you. Because of her, we're here. Brooks closed his eyes. Tears ran down his beaten face. She was so young. She had so much life ahead of her. She's a hero, Taylor said firmly. And we're going to make sure everyone knows it. The pods launched, carrying the survivors up through the chaos of the battle. Below them, the prison burned. Captain Wells had ordered a final bombardment, reducing the facility to molten rock. No more prisoners would ever suffer in that place. On the swift vengeance, the rescued humans received medical care from the ship's doctors. They were safe now, surrounded by their own kind. The nightmare was over. Wells watched the survivors being treated. She thought about the ones who had not made it, the 38 crew members of the Starlight Wanderer who would never come home. Their deaths would be remembered. Their sacrifice would mean something. She opened a channel to Commander Price at Kassar Prime. Mission accomplished. 9 survivors recovered. We're coming home. Price's voice came back, filled with relief. Well done, Captain. The Vrix government has requested surrender talks. It seems they've finally understood what they're dealing with. Wells looked out at the stars. Good. That must finish this. The war was almost over, but the lessons it taught would last forever. Admiral Patricia Cole arrived at Kessara Prime aboard her flagship, the dreadnought Earth's Resolve. She had traveled from Earth specifically for this moment. The Vrix had asked for peace, and she would be the one to give them the terms. The new Vrix government was made of civilian leaders who had survived the destruction of the military command. They were not warriors. They were administrators, merchants, and diplomats who had suddenly found themselves responsible for saving their entire species. Cole made them wait for 3 hours in a conference room aboard her ship. The room had large windows that looked out at space, and through those windows, the Vrix could see the remains of their once mighty fleet. Broken ships floated in the darkness, silent monuments to their defeat. When Cole finally entered the room, she did not apologize for the delay. She walked to the head of the table and stood there, looking at each Vrix representative in turn. Her face showed no anger, no satisfaction, only the calm certainty of someone who held all the power. The lead Vrix diplomat was named Sarath. He was old for his kind, with gray plates that had turned white at the edges. His 4 eyes could not meet Cole's gaze. He had been a trade negotiator before the war. He had never imagined standing here, begging for mercy from humans. Admiral Cole, Sarath began, his voice trembling slightly. We wish to express our deep regret for the actions that led to this conflict. Our military commanders acted without the full knowledge or approval of the civilian government. We did not understand the nature of humanity. We were told that you were a peaceful species, traders and explorers who would not fight. Cole let him speak without interruption. When he finished, she remained silent for a long moment, letting the quiet grow uncomfortable. You are right about one thing, she finally said. We are traders and explorers. We build things. We discover things. We prefer peace to war. But here's what you failed to understand about humanity. She walked to the window and looked out at the debris field. When you threaten our families, we fight. When you take our people, we come for them. When you kill our citizens, we make sure that the killers pay a price so terrible that no one will ever dare to do it again. She turned back to face the Vrix. Your species has conquered many worlds. You have defeated many enemies. But you have never faced an enemy like us. We do not fight for territory or resources. We fight for each other. And when we fight, we do not stop until the threat is eliminated. Sarath lowered his head in submission. We understand now. We should have understood sooner. Please, tell us your terms. Cole produced a tablet and handed it to him. The document was long and detailed, but the main points were clear. The Vrix would pay compensation to the families of everyone killed on the Starlight Wanderer. The amounts were large enough to cause real pain to the Vrix economy. The Vrix military would be reduced by 80%. They would keep only enough ships to defend their own borders. No more conquest. No more expansion. Human observers would be stationed in Vrix space for the next 100 years. They would watch for any violations of the agreement and report back to Earth. And finally, every Vrix child would be taught what happened when their ancestors ambushed a human ship. The story would be part of their education forever. They would learn about the Starlight Wanderer, about Katie Morgan's final message, and about the destruction that followed. Sarath read the terms carefully. His hand shook as he turned the pages. When he finished, he looked up at Cole with something like despair in his eyes. These terms are harsh, he said. Yes, Cole agreed. They are. But they are also fair. We could have destroyed your species entirely. We had the power to bomb your cities, kill your civilians, and end your civilization forever. Instead, we are offering you a chance to survive, a chance to rebuild, a chance to become something better than you were." She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Sarath's. "The question is, are you wise enough to take that chance?" The Vrix delegation asked for time to discuss the terms. Cole gave them 1 hour. When they returned, Sarath signed the agreement without further argument. In the weeks and months that followed, the story of the human response spread across the galaxy. Other species watched the recordings of the battle, studied the terms of surrender, and quietly changed their own policies regarding humanity. The Malorian trade Federation had been holding 6 humans on false charges for almost a year. Within a week of the Vrix surrender, those humans were released with apologies and compensation. The Drell Empire had been planning a raid on human mining operations in a disputed system. The planning files were deleted, and the ships assigned to the mission were sent in the opposite direction. The Zenthi Collective sent a formal diplomatic message to Earth, apologizing for an incident that had happened a century ago. They offered favorable trade agreements and promises of cooperation. Even species that had no direct relationship with humanity took notice. At gatherings and councils across the galaxy, diplomats and military leaders discussed what they had witnessed. The consensus was clear. Humans were not to be attacked. Humans were not to be threatened. Humans, above all, were not to be underestimated. Captain Daniel Brooks returned to Earth on a medical ship. His body would heal in time, though some scars would remain forever. He spent weeks in a hospital, recovering his strength and meeting with the families of his lost crew members. The family of Katie Morgan came to see him. Her parents were ordinary people, a teacher and an engineer who had never expected their daughter to become a hero. They cried when Brooks told them how brave she had been, how she had kept sending her message even as the Vrix closed in. "She saved us," Brooks told them. "Not just the survivors from the ship. All of us." Her signal told humanity what had happened. Without it, the Vrix might have gotten away with their crime. Because of Katie, they never will. A memorial was built on Earth in a park overlooking the ocean. It listed the names of all 47 crew members of the Starlight Wanderer, with Katie Morgan's name at the top. Every year, on the anniversary of the attack, people gathered there to remember. Brooks spoke at the first memorial service. He stood before the crowd, still thin from his ordeal, and shared what he had learned. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," he said. "There are species out there who see kindness as weakness, who believe that peace means you cannot fight. But they are wrong about humanity. We are kind because we choose to be, not because we have to be. And when someone forces us to fight, they learn very quickly that our kindness was never weakness." He paused, looking at the names carved in stone. "My crew died because a Vrix commander thought we were easy prey. He learned differently. And now, because of what happened to us, human ships can travel safer through this galaxy. Other species think twice before attacking our people. The lesson has been taught. 1,000 light years away, on a space station at the edge of known territory, a young pirate captain sat in a bar, drinking alone. He had been planning to intercept a human merchant convoy, a risky but potentially profitable operation. His crew had already begun preparations. Then the news about the Vrix War arrived. He watched the footage, saw the destruction of the Vrix fleet, and read the terms of surrender. He thought about what would happen if he attacked those human merchants and failed to kill every last one of them. He finished his drink, returned to his ship, and deleted the mission files. When his crew asked what had happened, he simply said that the target was not worth the risk. "But they're just merchants," one of his officers protested. "Traders and cargo haulers. Easy pickings." The captain shook his head slowly. "That's what the Vrix thought too. Look what happened to them." "No, We leave the humans alone. There's plenty of other prey in this galaxy. He set a course away from human space and never looked back. On Earth, Admiral Patricia Cole retired from active service 1 year after the war. She had done her duty and protected her people. Now it was time to let younger officers take over. In her final speech, she shared a simple message. We showed the galaxy what happens when you harm humanity. We showed them our strength. But strength alone is not enough. We must also show them our wisdom, our compassion, and our willingness to build instead of destroy. The Vrix learned to fear us. Now we must help them learn to trust us. That is how we truly win. And across the stars, in countless systems and on countless worlds, the lesson was remembered. Do not ambush a human ship. Do not harm human citizens. Do not mistake their kindness for weakness. Because if you do, humanity will respond. And their response will be absolute.